Welcome to the NBA Morning Deuce for December 10th. Live Deuce. Waiting for this slate to come off the screen. There we go. Deuce, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in on YouTube and Alex. We're on Twitch.
Additional platform?
Oh, yeah.
An additional platform, Deuce?
An additional platform Deuce. And what a day to have an additional platform Deuce. When Paul George get paid and the internet explodes about it. We got to talk about it. I have some thoughts. I think you'll probably have some thoughts about it. We'll update the James Harden situation because there is an update every day. Russell Westbrook, some interesting storylines coming out about Russell Westbrook and what his issues with the Houston organization and why potentially he wanted out of there, not just about championships maybe. And ESPN released their top 10 today of that list that we've been talking about all week. So we have to at least go through it a little bit because there is some interesting stuff in there. Something that I think the two of us probably can pat ourselves on the back about looking at the top of that ranking. Something that a drum we've been beating for a little while now. But first, couple things to knock out at the top of the show. One good thing, one not so good thing. First thing, happy Hanukkah to you and yours. I know you don't celebrate Hanukkah, but happy Hanukkah anyways.
I did not know it was Hanukkah.
It's the first night.
Okay.
The Festival of Lights. Happy Hanukkah to all of our Jewish listeners and viewers.
Happy Hanukkah.
The other thing, just gotta mention it off the top. Gotta just do it. Tommy or Tiny Lister, better known as Debo from the Friday movies. And if you go further back, you probably don't know this. You probably don't remember this. Zeus from No Holds Barred, the movie with Hulk Hogan, passed away today. So an absolute legend. Anytime, and he comes up in pop culture and in sports constantly, even just as recently as last weekend with Nate Robinson, because he is synonymous with the scene in Friday where he gets knocked the fuck out and Chris Tucker says, "You got knocked the fuck out." That's probably the most famous movie scene he's ever been in. And he stays in the pop culture and sports culture, especially in combat sports, because when someone gets knocked out like Nate Robinson did, they immediately think of Debo.
Yeah. I mean, if you are a character that a verb spawns from, like if you get people get Debo'd, you know?
Right, exactly.
That means he had a big role. So rest in peace.
Yeah, rest in peace to him. I saw that earlier. He was a legend. 62 years old, man. Not young guy. So that sucks. But yep, rest in peace to him. Man, would have been cool to see him do a few more things. But anyways, all right, let's get into the show. Mention it off the top. Paul George signs his extension with the Clippers today. 4 years, $190 million. Some people reporting it as 5 years, $226 million, but that is now what he's owed because he had this year and then he gets 4 additional years. So he's going to make $226 million over the next 5 years. I know you've seen some of the notes that I have in the rundown and stuff I wrote, but I would just immediately, when you saw this, what was your reaction?
My first reaction is two guys that absolutely snapped their leg and looked like they never would get paid again have gotten huge contracts this offseason. So shout out to modern medicine. And yeah, I'm happy for Paul George. I know he's had not like the greatest offseason in terms of likability, but I've always liked Paul George. So maybe he just got on that, I think it was All the Smoke podcast is where he threw Doc Rivers under the bus. I'll excuse him for that. You know, I'm happy for Paul George.
Yeah. So yeah, that's interesting. The crazy. My reaction was my immediate. I love that reaction though. By the way, and also like, I mean, if you're Dak Prescott, you got to feel pretty
things
good.
Are looking up. Yeah.
You know, that is $310 million that has been given out to men who snapped their legs in half this offseason. And that's probably about what Dak Prescott's going to get paid.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Somewhere around that much. So good for him when he comes back. But anyways, I was at work. I was at my day job when this news broke, and a guy came up to me. He's like, "You see what happened with Paul George?" And I was like, "Oh shit, Paul George is getting traded." Because I was like, "Oh man," the way he said it, I was just like, "This is it. It's happening."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he signed a max contract with the Clippers. And I was just like, okay. Like, is that a surprise? Are we surprised? Maybe we're surprised with the timing. I could see people being surprised with the timing because he has the player option, or he can opt out after this year, or maybe it was a 2-year. I don't know, whatever it was, but he could become a free agent next year. That was the whole storyline, right? Him and Kawhi, they have 2 years to prove the Clippers, to prove them that they can build a winning franchise and blah, blah, blah. But so I'm looking at it. I'm looking at his reaction to it. I'm like, okay, well, if that's not your reaction, then what's your reaction? People are freaking out about him getting a max contract, about him getting $190 million. And I just don't get it totally. He was bad in the playoffs. He was kind of not great last season. He was coming off 2 shoulder surgeries. So you have to take that into account. But it's another one of these things where people, look, I'm not a huge Paul George fan, and admittedly, like, yeah, he has disappeared a little bit in the playoffs over the years. And you look at him and you're like, you probably don't want him to be the best player on a championship team, but we say it all the time in this league, like there's not a lot of guys like that. But based on the reaction I've seen from NBA fans, like, you're going to hate this. You're going to hate this. You're going to hate this. A good friend of ours, I won't say his name on here because I don't want you to be mad at him, texted me today and said, Paul George is now the Carson Wentz of the NBA. And I was just like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Carson Wentz has played 5 years and been in 1 Pro Bowl and is now not playing. Paul George is a 6-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA, has been to the Eastern Conference Finals twice as the best player on a team. He's pretty much a Hall of Famer at this point. Like, we're talking about a guy who is 29 years old and is almost certainly going to be in the Hall of Fame if he could keep up any semblance of production over the next 5 or 6 years. Like, what am I missing here? Other than he was not great last year, but also, you know, he knocked Doc Rivers for the way he played him. I looked at his stats, 5 or 6 less shots a game last year. Maybe he wasn't getting used the same way. 18 shots a game for Paul George, probably not what you want with Paul George. Like, that's a volume scorer. A guy who 2 years ago averaged 28 a game and was 3rd in MVP voting. Like, why are people so down on him getting this money? This is the way the league works. Plus, at a position where it's a premium, almost every team in the league would have. There's not a team in the NBA, if Paul George was like, I want to go there, every single team in the league would give him this contract. But people are freaking out like Paul George doesn't deserve this max deal. I don't get it.
Here's my only guess, maybe, is that, you know, they saw the money per year, and not understanding how the salary cap works, you know, like, this is his 3rd contract. So this max contract is bigger than a guy that's signing his 2nd deal. Like, that's just how these deals work. So maybe people are looking at it relative to what a guy who got the max, like, I don't know, Tobias Harris didn't get like Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid, like, they got the max and they're a rookie max, you know? So maybe it looks like the money is outlandish and they don't understand that this is what a max contract is for a guy in his 30s. But yeah, Paul George is a max player. What are we even talking about? Like,
I think that's probably part of it. But I also think a lot of people, it's the same way we've shitted on we're down on Giannis because of what he did in the playoffs. We get down on guys so easily.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that there's a part of this where it's like, Paul George snapped his leg in half. Paul George had shoulder surgeries. Paul George had a down year. The Clippers had a disappointing season. And people are like, now he gets 4 years, 190. But it's the wrong way to look at it.
It's completely the wrong way to look at it. Yeah.
And also, they also gave up their entire future to make this work. Like we said, the big question with this team was, after what happened last year and going into this year, are those two guys even going to want to stay in LA after next season? If anything, this is a massive step forward for the Clippers franchise. He's only 29 years old. So now, even if Kawhi leaves, they at least are not ever really, they're not rebuilding for the next 5 years. Like, there's not a situation where these two guys now leave and they're tucked because they gave up all their draft picks.
Right.
Like, they at least now know, hey, if Kawhi leaves, we still have a top 20, top 15 type guy if he's right to build a team around and money to go get other. Like, I just couldn't believe the reaction. It was so weird to me.
I gotta think that the reasonable NBA fan understands that this is a no-brainer, and the things you're seeing on Twitter are just jackasses that felt like they hadn't tweeted in a while. But that doesn't make any sense to me.
I don't know, man. You're probably right. You know what I was thinking? I was thinking about this about Paul George too. He's like, he's getting ready. He's probably he might fall into, when it's all said and done, into like a Dominique Wilkins, Clyde Drexler category. Like, guys who, if you were around and you watch the game, or or you're in and you go back and watch it, and if you know, those guys were like absolute stuff. I mean, they're in the Hall of Fame for a reason, but like, they never get talked about. Like, I think people forget that Paul George was one game away from beating the Heat in the Eastern Conference. They went to 7 games with the Heat, and then 6 games the next year in the Eastern Conference Finals to potentially go to a championship. Like, it's the same way where like the Drexlers and the Wilkins and those guys, they don't get the credit, and they'll never get the credit because they never won a title because MJ was always there.
Right.
Paul George is he's in this Kevin Durant group. Well, KD has his titles now, so he's not in that group, but he's going to be in this group of guys who, like, in 15 years, you're going to kind of not forget, but you won't talk about them a ton, even though they'll probably be in the Hall of Fame because LeBron was so dominant. I think maybe people maybe devalue Paul George a little bit too, because it's like, well, he's not a guy who's going to beat LeBron James. Well, there's not a lot of guys who are. Right.
Basically only Steph Curry, like those Warriors teams and the Celtics. That's a really good comparison for me. And me being a little bit younger, and like, I didn't really watch Dominique Wilkins play that much, but like, you look at his numbers don't blow you away. But then when you hear people talking about him, you're like, oh, okay, I guess he was insanely good, and you'd have to have watched him to really respect him as much. But like, that's a guy I didn't see play, so I think you're right in the sense. 20 years
his numbers were insane,
right? But not up there with Jordan, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. Is like, you would think he's well below.
Well, Michael Jordan led the NBA in scoring for like 10 years in a row. So it's hard to really compare. But I mean, Dominique was averaging in mid 20s in the 90s. Like, people didn't. That's not that's not normal. Right. I mean, like, when you think about Dominique Wilkins, you think about the dunk contest with MJ. That's what people remember. They don't remember that he was an absolute killer, right, as a Hawk. And I think when you think about Paul George, when it's all said and done, they're not going to think about that because he just never got over the hump. But they're also not going to remember how close he was.
Right.
Like, they could have totally ruined the big three in Miami. They were a game away from just destroying that big three.
I'm with you. But I mean, that narrative could totally change if he gets a ring or two with Kawhi for sure. But I see what you're saying. I was just blown away by the reaction that people had, which was just like shocked that he got this kind of money. And I think your point is actually a really good one, that people just don't understand that $45 million a year is the going rate for a max player now. And we say it all the time. Is this a guy who can win you a championship? No, not by himself, but there's really only like 2 or 3 guys maybe that we're looking at in the NBA right now that can do that. Yep.
So you got the money. Teams have, there's 30 teams. They all have a shitload of money. Somebody's gonna have to get paid. And the other thing I was thinking about was, for all the people who are like, oh my God, they get paid $45 million to play a game and this and that, whatever. If you really want to get down to it, $45 million is not the value that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard bring to the Clippers organization. It's way more than that.
Yeah.
they're still not getting paid the amount of money they make for that organization.
Seriously. I mean, if the owner were to sell the team, he would get billions and billions of dollars.
Exactly. And trading for Kawhi and Paul George, or signing Kawhi and trading for Paul George, and the value that it boosts that that they're on opening night both years. They're playing Christmas Day games. They're expected. The league wants them in the finals and in the Western Conference Finals against like the league is pitting this rivalry that's not even a real rivalry, but they're creating this Lakers Clippers rivalry to try to boost this everything in this organization. You could say it was because of Kawhi, but Kawhi's not there if there's no Paul George. Like it was a package deal. We could see it from the beginning of when it all happened. So anybody who's like, he gets $190 million. Hey, look, he could probably make, if he was getting his real value to the organization, it's probably somewhere in like the $100 million a year range, if we're being honest. And that's for guys like LeBron and Kawhi and in these bigger organizations that, like you said, are multi-billion-dollar companies and are making all this money. The value that a guy like a Paul George or a Kawhi brings to an organization is probably more than $45 million a year.
Without a doubt.
So
that's great. Yeah. Twitter was way off on this one from afar for me.
Shocking.
Yeah.
I think he'll have a better year too.
I do too. Yeah.
He said on All the Smoke that he's working again with his trainer that he worked with the year before the offseason when he went to OKC, which was the year that he was third in MVP voting. He's just such a weird, like he's another one of these guys who like, not like Kyrie because he's not like saying dumb shit like Kyrie tends to do, but Paul George he puts his foot in his mouth a lot in the media. And I'm not even just talking about the Doc Rivers thing. I just mean like, like everywhere he goes, he's like, I'm loyal to this place. I want to be like, he did it obviously with the Pacers. And then he was like, I want to go to LA. And in OKC, there was that video that came out where he was in the club with Russell Westbrook. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. Yeah. And now he's like, I owe the Clippers a championship. It's like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah.
You've been there for 1 year. Like, yeah, I mean, sure. Every team any player that gets a max deal from a team owes that team a championship because that's a fuck ton of money, whatever way you look at it. But I mean, it's just the way he says these things. You're just like, dude, what are you talking about? You've never won a title. You've been there for 1 year. You don't have any real loyalty to the organization. What do you mean you owe them a title? They've never won a title. It's not like, what are we talking? He just has a tendency to say these things where you look back in a few years and you're like, yeah, Paul George said that.
And I actually had forgotten about a couple of those things. So maybe that's me just being lenient because I just think he's like a cool dude and I like him. But yeah, he's racking up some questionable quotes and anecdotes.
I kind of think you're it's weird. I think you're in the minority there. I think
I've always
people don't like Paul George.
Yeah, I may be. I don't really even know. I just think I don't know. I've always liked him his whole career. I just thought he was the coolest dude on the Pacers. And then
okay. So I think you're just living.
I'm maybe just kind of turning a blind eye to some of the stuff at OKC. Yeah,
you're living in the early 2000 teens, because I think as soon as he went on, I think it was Jimmy Kimmel or wherever it was, and said, "I want to play for the Lakers," while he was still under contract for the Pacers. I think people were like, "Who? What is this guy doing?" And I think and then he went, and then it just sort of went downhill. Then because he forced his way to OKC, and forces his way out of OKC after signing a contract extension, then goes to the Clippers and they lose in this. I mean, people are his nickname was Pandemic P in the playoff.
That's a good one. I'm going to keep, I hope, don't let me call him anything other than that the rest of even when this pandemic's long behind us, I'm going to keep calling him Pandemic P. That's pretty good.
You can call him whatever you want, man.
Pandemic P. Yep.
I think I'm going to call him Paul George.
Okay.
How's that?
That's fine. Okay. You're just choosing not to call him this dope ass nickname that he has.
Is it a dope nickname?
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's solid. Well, I mean, the next shoe to drop. Obviously, they asked him today about Kawhi, and he basically was just like, "I want to play with him. We like playing with each other. I hope he signs here, but it's his choice." So we'll see what happens next. I guess it doesn't look like Kawhi signing an extension, so he'll probably play it out and see what happens after this season. it would be some funny ass shit if they get bounced again and Kawhi just leaves Paul George there on a max deal.
That would be brutal. He would be hated by that, like as much as a team can hate some if they have another embarrassing exit in the playoffs. I mean, but I think he's there. I think he'll sign a long-term deal.
Let me ask you, what's not embarrassing? I mean, obviously 3-1 is embarrassing, but what's not embarrassing for the Clippers? Like this team was built.
Yeah, like if they make it to the finals, well,
Okay.
no, he's going to get absolutely hammered if he leaves, regardless. But
Yeah.
say they have another early exit and he skates out of town, like now we're talking about where you were saying his legacy is going to fall off a cliff pretty quickly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's true, and I believe that to be true. I believe even if he stays, and even if they lose and he stays, his legacy is going to start. Look, I told you, I got a sense for these things. I have a sense for these things, and they could still win. But let me tell you something. I don't think that there's any way you can look at the Lakers and say that the Clippers are better than the Lakers. So I think best case scenario for the Clippers this year, they get bounced in the Western Conference Finals. I don't see, unless there's an injury or something.
I was going to say it. I was going to do it again.
Well, first of all, I'm not like saying, what if their career gets ended? I'm saying like, LeBron's 37. He's going into his 18th year. He could have finally have what everybody has at 38 years old, like a bad back or a nagging hamstring, like anything could happen. Or he could have a Goran Dragic thing, I'm not talking about him like breaking his kneecap like you were talking about yesterday. But I guess that could happen.
I said rack up his knee, which could be a variety of things. But yeah.
I didn't call you on that either because I had no idea what you were talking about.
You never heard that? Just racking your knee up? No.
Racking?
Yeah.
No.
That's definitely a phrase. Okay. That'll be on the dog walking list that we have. Yeah,
I mean, anybody who's heard of that, please leave us a comment and let me know because I don't know racking like. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not in terms of injuries, like racking my brain to find the answer. I've heard of that.
Okay, I'm pretty confident in this one, but maybe I'm way off. But we'll look it up.
All right. Yeah, we will. All right. Let's talk about James Harden. So, a bunch of reports sort of came out today. Like different things, obviously, keep coming out about him and his trade requests and all that. Now, the reports that are coming out today, he's added the Bucks and the Heat to his trade list. But I've seen some different things. Now, there's an outlet down here that I mentioned down here. And when I say down here, I mean Miami, South Florida, where I live. There's an outlet down here called 5 Reasons Sports. And they have some pretty in the know when it comes to the Heat. And there's one guy there that was reporting today that the Bucks are not in the conversation. That if Harden moves, that right now it's the Bucks, the Sixers, and the Heat.
Sorry, go back. The Heat are not in the conversation?
No, the Bucks are not in the conversation. It's the Heat, Sixers, and Nets.
Gotcha.
But it's being reported that he would go to the Bucks. So I mean, look, the same outlet is reporting that the Heat have had conversations with Houston over the last few days, but will not budge on Tyler Herro at the moment.
Right.
Then there was other stuff that came out today that was basically said that the Rockets won't trade Harden to the Nets unless they get Kyrie or KD. So, I mean, I just don't see that happening. Although I will say this, if I'm Sean Marks, I'm listening because if it's KD or Kyrie, or if it's Kyrie or James Harden, I'm taking James Harden. And I don't even think it's close. And even though they're both kind of a headache, I feel like Kyrie has proven to be a little more of a headache. Like this is the first time James Harden's really been a headache. Kyrie is a headache. So
yes.
If what they're asking for is like picks and Kyrie Irving and maybe a few other players, if I'm Sean Marks, I'm like, yeah, I know KD wanted to play with me, but I'm probably trading Kyrie for James Harden.
Yeah, I am in a second. I don't even think that's a question. He hasn't even played that many games for the Nets. Like, I don't know.
I feel like
that matters.
He played 5 games last year or something.
Yeah, I don't know. That would make my prediction that Kyrie is not a Net by the trade deadline look pretty nice. But to the point of the Bucks thing is throwing me out. Like, what could the Bucks possibly give up to get James Harden and remain title contenders? They don't have anything. Chris Middleton and Dante DiVincenzo and some other guy. Like,
Yeah.
literally, what is the package the Bucks have? It's not gonna happen.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Excuse me. Sorry. Sorry. Whew. Got something caught in my throat. Yep. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, how much are the Bucks now regretting this Drew Holiday trade potentially? Because they gave up all their assets that they could use in a trade like this for Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
Probably not even thinking that James Harden was on their radar.
Exactly. Yeah. So any reasonable Milwaukee fan will be like, yeah, we couldn't have foreseen this, but that's not going to prevent people from being pissed because they don't have any ammo now.
Yeah. Well, and I was wondering also, like, can they trade Drew Holiday?
I don't think so. I think a certain amount of time has to go by.
Yeah. There's probably like a point in the season where they can.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Because I was going to say, like, Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton.
Maybe by the trade deadline, but I think it's like a certain number of days, not game. Like, I think it's.
But basically, I was going to say the way things are shaking out, like, so remember the other day, one of the Warriors reporters basically said the Warriors are not interested in James Harden. Now today, a Celtics reporter came out and said the Celtics are not interested in James Harden. One of these guys from 5 Reasons said that the Bucks are not in the mix for James Harden. So there's really only 3 teams that teams keep consistently talking about. They say that Pat Riley doesn't want to give up Tyler Herro. They say that the Rockets don't want to give up or don't want to trade Harden unless they get Kyrie or KD. The way this seems to be shaking out to me is that the Rockets are going to eventually trade James Harden. They're not going to get much back. And they're just going to budge. Like, at some point, they're going to be like, we just got to get over this shit. Like, I understand where Tillman Fertitta, he's a relatively new owner. He's trying to be like, and then they have a new GM and they're all trying to be like, no, we're going to win this. We're going to win this. You're probably not going to win this thing, man. You're probably not going to win this thing. And the longer you wait, the less leverage you're going to have in a deal for James Harden. And you're eventually just going to have to sort of take the deal you can get, which, as we've said, I think 100 times now, is probably the Nets. And it's probably all of the pieces other than Kyrie and KD.
Right. Here's where I don't necessarily think I'm with you. Just I think if the Rockets trade him, they are going to get a lot back. And I just think that in these reports, we're not getting the full picture because, I mean, training camp's about to start. Any trade for James Harden is going to return like a critical piece of a team. These organizations don't want their good players worrying about trade rumors. Like, I just feel like these negotiations are going to be extremely tight-lipped and could be happening without people like beat writers in the know to be like, oh, this guy's involved in this trade, or like if the Celtics were to give up something, they'd probably have to give up Jaylen Brown, I would think, or like Kemba.
That's the thing. Right now, teams are not going to give up their best players because they know James Harden doesn't want to be in Houston.
But those teams
Houston has no leverage right now.
I think they have leverage in the sense that multiple teams want James Harden. So they have teams bidding against each other, But
they're not bidding against each other. If anything,
we know
they're all just waiting. Because my assumption is most of these teams are looking around saying James Harden is doing what he's doing, which is not reporting to camp, not, you know what I'm saying? Like, all this shit. And my guess is that they're looking around saying, like, I mean, why would we give up our best players right now when eventually Houston's going to pull the trigger and then we'll be there? Like, if the Heat are not willing to give up Tyler Herro, then the Celtics ain't giving up Jaylen Brown. And obviously that reporter who is close to the situation in Boston says that the Boston's not involved. So I don't think Boston is involved. And I don't blame them.
I guess that's where I'm not. I just feel like regardless of what that reporter says, Boston could still be involved, and they're just not letting anybody know, I know that's tough to do in today's day and age, but like Kemba Walker and a shitload of first round picks for James Harden seems very possible to me. I know they'd have to do more to make the money work.
I don't think Houston would do it. Now, I could see a scenario where a team that no one's talking about, like we've mentioned, the Hawks or whatever, because, by the way, Houston has no responsibility to trade James Harden somewhere that he wants to go.
Right.
In a lot of situations, teams generally, if a guy, especially a guy who's done as much for the organization as James Harden has over the last however many years, they tend to respect the wishes if they want to move on or whatever. They try to make it work to keep things right, particularly because the thing you have to think about on all of this is like James Harden, James Harden's right by his mom. So, but when an organization treats a player like shit, agents notice that. Not that they're treating him like shit, but if it gets really ugly, agents take notice of that. Will guys want to go to Houston? Whatever. I think most people probably realize Harden's the one who's being a little petty right now in what he's doing. But then there was Tim McMahon, who's the Houston guy who's been reporting a lot of this stuff, basically said that he talked to a former Rockets staffer who said that this is the first time James Harden's ever been told no about anything since he got there, so he's going to act out.
It's like a child. It's actually very analogous to a child.
Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, yeah, he's been the Rockets for how many years now? 5, 6 at least. Young Chainz X. He's a young rapper. Yeah, we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about James Harden.
But here's the thing. So the one place that's still very interesting to me because they keep coming up whenever there's a star. So is Miami. And according to these South Florida reporters I actually do trust their reporting because I know that they've gotten a lot of things right over the last year or so when it comes to Miami stuff. Saying that the Heat are not willing to give up Tyler Herro to get James Harden. Fine. Jimmy Butler went on the jump today. So when the report came out that James Harden, so here we go. This is another Twitter thing, right? Or social media. I don't know if it was Twitter or Instagram or whatever, but there was a tweet. James Harden has added Miami and Milwaukee to his list. Jimmy Butler liked it.
Ooh.
Yeah. Jimmy Butler went on the jump today, and Rachel Nichols asked him about liking the tweet. And there was a picture of James Harden. It was a picture of James Harden, and he has like the braids that he had. And she's like, what? Why did you like that? And he goes, I like his hair. And I like the way his beard looks. And she was just like, that's it. And he's like, yeah, I mean, and then she did. She sort of pressed him on it. And he basically said, like, I love my situation in Miami, but I'm good friends with James. I just want to see him happy. There are some people that are down here that are saying, like, the fact that they're even having the conversation of potentially trading for James Harden means that the Heat, they can, I guess the word that I saw used was culturalize him to the Heat culture, because they wouldn't even consider the trade if they didn't think that he could fit with the culture. Because the concern that I've had with potentially trading for him is how much he could potentially fuck up that situation where they were just 2 games away from the finals. But I got to say, like, as much as I love Tyler Herro, if you believe that you can get James Harden and he can fit into the situation you have down there with Jimmy Butler and Bam, how do you not trade for James Harden in a year where everything is sort of up in the air, especially in the East?
Yeah. And I've said a bunch of times on here, I wouldn't be like super thrilled to trade Tyler Herro for Giannis, but that's not how I feel about James Harden, because James Harden and Jimmy Butler and Bam can win you a title right now and maybe a couple more, whereas I'm not there with Giannis, but like, it's a little bit not crazy, but
I think a lot of people would totally disagree with you on that. On not Tyler Herro for Giannis, but trading him for Harden so quickly.
Right. Yeah. No. I'm probably in the minority on that. I just think James Harden is such a superior player in terms of playoff basketball and winning a championship than Giannis. I don't think I would make Tyler Herro untouchable. I think that's kind of crazy.
I don't know though. I just don't know, man. Like, it's so hard because Tyler, I just think that maybe there's still something like maybe he is a like top 20 NBA player. Like, not today, obviously.
Could be. Yeah, he definitely could be. Yeah. But
so it's just like, I get why they wouldn't include him. I do, because if they keep Tyler Herro seemingly is going to be in Miami for a very long time. If you trade for James Harden, you're potentially trading a guy who could be a top 20 to 25 player in the NBA for the next 10 years for a guy who could leave after this contract if things don't go. So I get it. But like I always say, like, who cares about the next 10 years if you can win a title next year? It's very hard to win one NBA title. So 10 years down the line doesn't matter as much as people like to make it seem like it matters. But I do personally think one of the biggest problems with Harden is they would have to change a lot of the things they do to make the offense work with Harden.
Yeah.
He doesn't really play the type of basketball, or at least he hasn't. Not that he can't. I mean, dude, he's James Harden. He's one of the best scorers in NBA history, and he's naturally a two guard, even though he's on the ball a lot. But if he like Miami was a very spread out. They ran a lot of things through Bam or Jimmy. One of the best 3-point shooting teams in the regular season. Drive and kick. Let Bam do his thing in dribble handoffs. It's just like they would really have to change a lot of things they do to fit Harden into the system. Where again, they were 2 wins away from the NBA championship. Like, Herro fits better right now for what they do. But it is really hard to figure out like which way I would go there, because it's hard for me to say like I wouldn't trade for one of the best scorers in NBA history. But at the same time, you have that kid has a chance to be a perennial all-star.
Yeah. No, I think what you're saying about, if he's willing to fit into the culture and what they do offensively is a huge determining factor. Like, Jimmy's talking to him now and stuff. The thing I'm remembering is when Kevin Durant left OKC to go to the Warriors, he was like super vocal and stoked about wanting to fit into that offense, and like play this team basketball thing. I mean, he got his numbers and everything, but he also was like eager to fit into what the Warriors were doing. James Harden's going to have to be eager to fit into what the Heat are doing for you to part with a guy that could be an all-star for 10 years,
Yeah, I guess the difference with KD is, first of all, at the time he was either the first or second best player in the NBA when he went to Golden State. Like, there was no real debate about that. Also, they did change a lot of what they did when KD got there. In fact, halfway through the season, people were like, is KD messing up the Warriors offense? Because there was a lot of times where it was just like, the year before it was boom, 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 drive and kick, pace and space, moving the ball. And there was a lot of times that first year in Golden State where it would get to KD and then KD would do his thing. But that's just what you got to live with. My thing is, look, Jimmy Butler probably at this point in his career, Russell Westbrook, I think at this point. But Russ and Harden did not really fit together very well, because Harden needs the ball in his hands, and off the ball, Russ is not very good. Jimmy Butler is maybe a little off the ball, but really you want the ball in Jimmy Butler's hands because he's a good playmaker. His best ability as a scorer is getting to the rim, getting to the foul line. You're not doing that unless you have the ball in your hands. But how are you going to bring in a guy like James Harden and not have the ball in his hands? He's one of the best like one-on-one individual scorers in the history of the game. So it's a weird way. And then we're not even talking about Bam, who we've acknowledged, and even like this ESPN ranking that we're going to talk about, they have him as the 13th best player in the NBA next year, potentially. Now you're taking opportunities away from Bam to grow into something that we think he can grow into, which is one of the best players in the NBA. So it's just, I don't know, the fit just doesn't seem totally right to me.
Right. Yeah, I'm with you. I know how good of a coach Spo is. Spo's made it work with LeBron and D Wade. I know it's not, and
it's not the same.
It's not the same, but I mean, Spo is such a good coach that wouldn't be as big of a concern for me.
I love Spo. LeBron can't compare anything to a LeBron team, or even a D Wade team for that matter, but more so LeBron. It's just different. It's different.
Yeah, it's different. But Spo is the reason I'm not too worried about. Like, I think he fits. Harden fits perfectly in there. I think they become like the best team in the East. Like, that's why I do it immediately. Tyler Herro for James Harden. I mean, the Heat look unstoppable to me. But I hear your concerns.
It's so hard. It's such a hard thing. I don't know. I mean, I think he fits better with them than Giannis.
Yes.
But I don't know. I don't think he goes to the Bucks. I think ultimately, when this is all said and done, I just can't see a scenario where he doesn't end up with the Nets. It just seems like he's going to end up with all this shit. It just seems like he's going to end up on the Nets. But I do, I don't know there's probably odds out there. We haven't even checked them. But I would say it feels like there's like a 50-50 shot that there's a team out there that we're not talking about, and that's where he's going to end up. Like the Paul George thing. This actually does strike me a lot like the Paul George situation in Indy. I don't think anybody thought he was going to OKC. No. But OKC had the pieces and the assets, and they were like, all right, we're going to take a chance and bring you in, and we're going to prove to you why. Mm-hmm. Maybe OKC trades for James Harden and brings him back.
The ultimate pump fake. I mean, that would be one of the craziest developments in league history.
No, but like I could see a team that we're just not talking about going and saying we have we've been talking about the Hawks on here a lot.
ESPN wrote an article and they didn't mention the Hawks. It was crazy. Like the Hawks are flying way under the radar.
The Hawks make a lot of sense. Now that's a team where you put him young. Now you got something like that's a perfect fit in my opinion, because I think they complement each other perfectly. Yeah. Trae Young's one of the best shooters in the NBA, so like it's hard to say like he's not great off the ball yet, but he's getting better. But he's better off the ball with a James Harden type because he can shoot from anywhere. So Hawks would be the one. I'd love to see him play for the Hawks. That would just be cool. The East would be so damn loaded. But I think it's either the Nets or a team that's not on the one we've been talking about.
I'm still just holding out hope for the Sixers, but it looks bleaker and bleaker. If I had to put money somewhere, it would be the Nets for sure.
Yeah, if I had to put money, I might go with if it was like Nets or the Field or Nets. If it was one of these four teams or the Field, I'd probably go Field right now. Because I just feel this does feel, now that I sort of played it out in my head, it feels a lot like that Paul George situation where it was like, I got to go to LA. And then the Pacers were like, well, we don't have to trade you to LA. We're going to trade you for what gets us our best situation. And it did get them Victor Oladipo, who until his injury was their franchise player and might be. So now that I'm thinking out loud about it, I could see it being the Field, a team that we're not talking about. And maybe not the Hawks. Who knows? I don't know who else is out there that has like young, high, like the Hawks could give them John Collins, Kevin Herter, Cam Reddish, and I feel like if you're the Rockets, you're doing that in a second, even though you just signed Christian Wood. You could play Christian Wood and John Collins together, probably. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd go with the Field. As if things weren't like gnarly enough right now for Houston with this James Harden situation. Now we get this report today that Russell Westbrook, so we always thought like, oh, he didn't fit. The fit with James Harden wasn't good, and he wanted out. Now there's a report that came out from Henry Abbott, from the True Hoop guy, who doesn't do like a lot of reports, so I don't know where the report was from, but says that last year Russell Westbrook lost trust in the organization because of the way they handled COVID-19 protocols when they came back from the layoff, and that after the way that they basically just didn't take it seriously, and he just didn't like it. They didn't do their best to keep the players safe and all that shit. And that once that happened, he lost trust in the organization. And now last week or a few days ago, I don't know if you saw this, and I think we may have mentioned it on here, but that there was someone close to James Harden's camp that called the Rockets the Knicks of the South.
Oh my God.
The way they run their organization. So this is now multiple reports within a couple weeks or even like a week where it's like this organization might be a bigger shit show than we even realize. And it is not a good look.
It's definitely not a good look. We also kind of like, this is the Daniel House organization. Like this is where, I mean, they had the big blow up in the bubble. Like, I mean, they were the team that almost torpedoed this whole thing. And we even posited that maybe Daniel House fell on the sword for James Harden. So,
oh, yeah, that's right.
Of course, we don't think that's true now, but
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Russell Westbrook has a family. He's got kids. I mean, he can't. He wants his organization making sure everything's like tight, with this COVID stuff. He's taking it super seriously.
Needed to be
Gotta be.
Up. Yeah, not a good look. I wonder if the league will like take that report in any way seriously and maybe investigate. Like say, Rockets, what the fuck are you doing? Now, I think at the time, well, actually, no, when they came back, people knew how serious COVID was. So they absolutely should have been taking it very seriously. That's weird, man. And it's not good. I've never heard bad things about the Rockets. It's new ownership. So I don't know. Like, I don't know this guy Fertitta other than he's super rich.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a good look for people saying like, oh, James Harden should stay loyal to the organization and just show up. Like, obviously he wants to win a title, but then you hear things like this and you're like, maybe it's not good. Maybe it's not good down there.
I mean, the amount of stuff that has come out since Morey said, I'm out of here is a lot, like a lot of stuff poured out of that. So maybe it was just the floodgates for exposing something that is, a really bad situation.
How much of it was Morey?
Maybe Morey did an amazing job of keeping things in house, like preventing things from getting out. Maybe I don't know.
But what I'm saying is, how much of it was Morey? Like, COVID's a hoax.
I feel like Morey's pretty.
That he thinks that. I'm just saying, like,
he strikes me as pretty liberal.
But he's had a lot of freedom to run the organization his way for like 12 years. So if this is coming out now about the organization, it's almost certainly had to be majorly because it's been different owners. So it's almost certainly a lot of it falls on Daryl Morey.
It would, yeah.
So maybe so there was a report today that he left because he had a feeling the Harden thing was coming. But maybe he also left because he just knew like a lot of things were getting ready to happen. And he was like, I got to get out of here because we are a shit show and people are about to find out, which also not great for your boys.
No, not great at all.
Because you guys have had major leadership issues for years now, since Sam Hinkie, and even who knows really what was going on there. But just controversy after controversy with guys, and then guys that don't know what they're doing, and now you bring in Morey, who just left a situation that potentially, while he was there, was not what we thought it was. It was actually a complete shit show. I'd be interested to ask Chris Paul about it, because I feel like that's the guy where you're like, how is it really down there?
Yeah.
And he's going to tell you the truth.
Yeah. All right, let's get him on the show. Just pull a couple strings.
All right, I'm going to get Chris Paul on the show. Yeah, I'm going to do that. Not a good look for them. Last thing before we talk a little bit about that top, because I do want to talk about the top 10 on the ESPN thing. Mm-hmm. This is not in the rundown, by the way, so I'm just springing this on you. Kyrie and the Nets were both fined $25,000 each for last week when Kyrie decided not to address the media.
Wow.
So there you go.
Would that escalate? Like, is the next fine $25K, or would they escalate? Or maybe he was like, wait.
How many times? What?
I'm picturing Kyrie, like, assuming the fine was like $2,000 or something, and then he finds out it's $25K. He's like, okay, yeah, no, I'll address the media. I'm going to address the media now. Like, doing an immediate 180.
Yeah, well, this is one of those things where it's just like $25,000. Again, this is one of those things where I think outsiders and fans and people look at it and they're like, well, he makes $40 million a year. What's $25,000 a lot of money?
Yeah, come on.
I mean, like, and if this is, and we said like, when we said like he's going to do this media blackout or whatever, when it was reported that he was going to do a media blackout, we were like, well, he's just going to keep getting fined. Well, he's already gotten fined $25,000. So even if it is $25,000 every time, like, guy's going to lose a lot of the money if he doesn't address the media, because you're supposed to address the media every game if they want to talk to you. Like, there is required on game days, there is required time, like at shoot around. It's like before or after shoot around. And then I think after the games, they have to make certain guys available. So like, you're looking at potentially 82 times $25,000 if it's $25,000 each time if he decided not to address the media. Kyrie is out of his fucking mind, but he's not dumb. Like I think we've figured out he's not a dumb person. He has dumb ideas and he says dumb things. But I would think that he understands that's a lot of money. I think he'll address the media.
I think he gets these things in his head and then locks on and doesn't check. Like, it would have taken him a couple hours to Google around to figure out the earth isn't flat. Taken him a couple hours to be like, oh, I'm going to find a shitload. Okay, I'm not going to do that. But instead he puts it into full force.
Yeah.
And has to do a 180 a day later through his publicist or whoever that was that said,
God, I hope he gets traded for James Harden. It would be so fun.
Electric. Oh my God. The Nets, I would do a total 180 on the Nets. I would be just thrilled, honestly, that Kyrie is banished to this shit show in Houston.
Kyrie and John Wall.
Oh my God. Fast team. You got a fast team there. That's about it.
Doesn't that seem weird? Like if you're really taking these reports any level of serious, the Rockets won't do the trade unless it's Kyrie or KD. So the Rockets want Kyrie. They want to trade Harden if they can get Kyrie and have John Wall and Kyrie. Like
some of these reports, man, I think they're smoke screens or just getting clicks. I don't know.
And also, like, I'm not saying I'm a genius I'm not like an authority on the NBA. But I feel like a lot of people talk about Kyrie and they're like, Kyrie can't win it for you. Kyrie can't be the man. But then anytime there's like a potential trade, it's like, well, we want Kyrie if we're going to make that deal. But don't teams see the same thing that other people see? Like, yeah, I get it how talented he is. But then like you watch or you listen or watch LeBron talk about him on that podcast the other day. And he's like, LeBron even says like this guy should be league MVP or he's selling himself short. And it just, things did, even though we won a championship, things didn't quite click. Like, shouldn't that tell you something? Like a guy can't get along with LeBron James on his team. Yeah. I don't know that how do teams around the league not see that? Like, how do they not feel that? And like, I wouldn't trade James Harden for Kyrie Irving. I'd wait for a better deal.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I definitely think a better deal is, dude, I honestly, this might sound crazy, I would just honestly rather have Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, and Spencer Dinwiddie. Like, I just don't want any parts of Kyrie. I don't.
Yeah, here's a hot take. Is Karis LeVert better than Kyrie Irving?
Karis LeVert's value to an organization in the sense that he's more likely to be healthy at the end of the season, and he's not a complete head case.
Per dollar and also per dollar earned, way more valuable.
I think so, but I actually am very high on Karis LeVert and could not be lower on Kyrie. So
yeah, I don't think you're the only one who's really high on Karis LeVert. I think a lot of people are, but no one would ever say. That's the thing. People will never say it. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. I'm sure there's a lot of people. I bet you it's like split almost. Like, I bet you if you just were like, "Hey, I'm not going to mention this on the podcast," but you went to 100 people, you're like, "I'm not going to tell this publicly. I'm not going to say her name." Kyrie Irving or Karis LeVert. They're probably like 50-50 Karis LeVert. But if you brought him on here, they don't want people to think they're like crazy. So like, what? Kyrie Irving's an NBA champion. He's he's a loser.
Yeah, he is. That's what he is. He's a bust. You gotta take
it into account.
He's a bust. Am I using that correctly?
It's hard to say he's a true buster because true busters never win anything.
Okay. I see. Yeah. So, yeah.
Like Paul George is a buster. Even though he almost went to the finals, he didn't. Paul George is a buster.
Gotcha.
Dwight Howard up into wasn't the ultimate buster.
Yeah, he was captain of the all-buster team.
Yeah. But, yeah. I think Kyrie will talk to the media. I think that's the gist of this. Yeah. All right. So we've been talking about this the ESPN list all week, and they came out with the top 10. And now, again, you got to clarify because again, people were debating this shit again and reporting it as ESPN's top 100 players. Yes, it's ESPN's top 100 players for next year, like who they think are going to be the top 10. It's not who they think this moment are the top 100 players. It's who they think will be the top 100 players in the NBA next season. And I'll tell you what, I'm not mad at this list because some of the stuff we were saying in the playoffs really check out with this list. Okay.
Yep.
So at 10, we have Nikola Jokic. I'm fair. That's fine with me. I don't think you could put him much higher than that. It's hard to say because he doesn't really defend. This one's interesting. James Harden at 9. Maybe low, maybe a little low, but I think he's getting a little older. Now this whole thing, again, taking into account what's going to happen next season, maybe they think he falls off a little bit. I don't know. Here's where a little bit of controversy came in. Steph Curry at 8 and Dame Lillard at 7. I think a lot of people are probably not super happy to see Dame over Steph.
Yeah.
But you have to take into account that it's next season.
Right. Here's where I think I don't know, follow me here. Maybe this doesn't make total sense, but like if Steph Curry is healthy and good enough to be 8, I think he's going to be way better than Damian. You know what I mean? Like if Steph Curry isn't 100% and doesn't come back healthy and doesn't have a great season, at the end of the year, I don't think he's going to be close to the top 10. If he is Steph, then he's better than Damian Lillard by like a lot. You know, I just don't see
a lot.
Like I just don't see Steph coming back and like if he's having a great year, not being better than Damian Lillard. Does that make sense?
Though? But like, I don't know about.
Say definitively, just he is better than Damian Lillard.
He's better. He's arguably. I mean, depending on what you're using to rank them, he's arguably the best point guard ever, right? Like, so sure, but much better. I don't know, man. Dame's pretty fucking good, dude.
Oh, I know. I'm saying if Steph is healthy, then he's knocking on the door of the top 5 to me, and I don't think Dame. I just don't see that for Dame. I like Dame, but I'm not as ridiculously high as some people are on him. Like,
by the way, Dame creeping into the all buster situation. He's knocking on the door.
Because he's what, 27, 28 now? He's starting to creep up there in age, and that's usually when you start revealing your busterness. But
I mean, he loses in the playoffs a lot. Now, to his we could say what we want. Like, he's had to play the Warriors a lot in the playoffs. His teams aren't really built to probably win titles. But you know, when you start approaching top 5, 6, 7 players in the league, you got to be a guy who can win your team a title, and he's not that guy. Probably not that guy. We don't know. He's never played on a team that was probably good enough to win a title, but isn't that partially because he's not a guy who can get you to a championship? You know, it's like
it is what it is.
Yeah. So yeah, this drew a lot of controversy. Again, Steph at 8. Maybe people taking into account that now he doesn't have Clay. So does it make it harder for him to be as great as he can be? But then there's also a lot of people who think because he doesn't have Clay, he's going to come out and be MVP because he gets 30. So, you know, who knows? I don't know.
It's kind of what I'm saying. Why 8 does it? Like, he should either be higher by a little bit or not even in the top 10. You know,
yeah.
Number 7, man. Sorry, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I think it's too high. Dude, he wouldn't. Yeah, he wouldn't be top 10. If I'm making this list, he would be 11, and Jason Tatum would be ahead of him. Jokic would be ahead of him. Harden would be ahead of him. Curry would be like. I think the Blazers might not be that good this year. I know we said they got better. I'm not a Cantor fan.
They got better. They had a really good offseason.
Yeah, I just don't see. They're not going to be better than Denver. You know, that's why I definitely think Jokic is ahead of him.
Well, but we're not talking about whose team's going to be better. We're talking about the better player.
But when you talk about, you know, who's going to, like, at the end of the season, a lot of the team success is going to be a part of that, just like it is in like MVP voting and stuff. You know, like
right. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I think this is too high for Dame for me.
But do you think the Warriors are going to be better than the Blazers without Clay?
I keep forgetting about the Clay injury. I do actually think the Warriors could be better if Steph's 100%. I don't know, not a big. I just don't. I think the Lillard McCollum thing. We know what it is. Like, we know they're dangerous offensively. They can't guard anybody. I don't know.
It's true. It's fair. It's a good. That's why it's controversy. Kevin Durant 6 on this list. I think that's fair, but obviously it's kind of like Steph. Like, if KD is KD, then he's top 3.
Exactly. That's what yeah. Like, KD's either going to be top 3 or he's going to be in the 20s somewhere, you know, depending. Because, like, in that scenario, he comes back and he's not KD. He's not healthy, you know?
I think a 50% KD is a top 10 player in the NBA.
Yeah, maybe high teens or something. But that is exactly what I'm saying with Steph.
It's the same situation. Yeah. If he's comes back and he's the KD that we know, then he's not the best player in the NBA. I mean, at the worst, he's in the top 5, and he's probably, he's 2, maybe even 2, right? Number 5 is an interesting one. Kawhi. Maybe we're starting to, maybe what I've been saying, maybe people are starting to take notice. Kawhi, maybe not. Maybe legacy's starting to get hurt a little bit. I don't know. Because I think coming into last year, it probably would have been 1A1 in some people's minds.
It was. We discussed that in the playoffs, like early on, Kawhi being right up there. But
so that's an interesting one. The next one, we're banging this drum in the playoffs. Luka at 4, which might, again, maybe is a little overreaction to the playoffs, but I don't think it is. I don't think so, man. This dude is an absolute monster, and he's super young. And this goes a little bit to our conversation of who's the next face of the NBA too, right? Like, he's already 4th. Only 1 spot behind Giannis, who checks in at 3 on this list, which is also interesting because the top two is interesting. But Luka at 4, already a top 5 player after 2 years, right? 2 years in the league. I mean, he's special. We said this. We were saying when in the Clipper series, like, is he already top 5 in the NBA? And we were trying to figure out, like, who do you knock out? Now, they knocked out Kevin Durant. And I think we even said in the playoffs, like, we don't know with Kevin Durant. So I think we both were saying that Luka was like maybe 5th, and we both had Kawhi ahead of him at the time.
I think so. And I think we bumped, maybe it was Giannis that we bumped, honestly, just because we were so low on him after the playoffs.
It's hard to say that Luka is already better than Kawhi. I mean, obviously, look, the guy averaged close to a 30-point triple. I mean, he's like triple-double, walking triple-double, averages close to 30, can do basically everything on the floor. The only person who can do more things than him offensively in the NBA right now is probably LeBron James.
Yeah.
Kawhi, even a knockdown, like a bummer season, Kawhi is the best defensive player in the NBA. So it's hard to say like he's better all around basketball player. So I maybe wouldn't have bumped him ahead of Kawhi just yet.
Well, we got to remember this is projecting. This is a projection.
Yeah, but I don't think he's just going to come into next season and be a better defensive player than Kawhi Leonard.
Definitely not defensively, no.
Right. So, I mean, he might be better than him offensively right now, but but Kawhi might be so much better defensively that it would be hard to say all around. Now, again, like, I think probably you have to weight it differently too, because individual offense is more important than individual defense, I think. Because I think team defense and having a lot of team, for example, if you have Rudy Gobert on your team, like we talked about, you probably don't have to be the greatest defender, because if your guy goes by you, like, you don't have to be the greatest wing defender.
Right.
Actually, having Porzingis, right? Porzingis is a shot blocking monster because he's huge. So you don't have to be the greatest defensive player. And then you got a great defensive coach in Rick Carlisle. Like, so yeah, maybe because he's so good offensively, the defense, you don't have to take it into account as much. But it would be close. Like, I might still have Kawhi ahead of him by a small margin, because Luka's a fucking beast, dude. Giannis at 3 is interesting to me. People are, again, this is the same thing as Kawhi. Like, even just him falling to 3 after winning back-to-back MVPs,
yeah,
kind of says something.
Right.
Is in terms of where they think he'll go.
Yeah, I'm assuming it kind of, well, I'm trying to, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it kind of seems like they think the Bucks are going to be super good again and maybe win the West. I mean, that's the only reason you would have him at 3, right? Because, if the Nets win the West, KD is going to be the better player than Giannis. I mean, there's no way,
Right. Before we talk, go ahead. What'd you say?
I would not have Giannis at 3. I'd have him back at 6, I think.
6 is low. People would probably freak out if they saw your list, but you get a lot of clicks.
Yeah.
Before we do before we continue this, and Sean York says Paul George is a waste of money. Well, that's Sean at the top of the show. He sort of addressed that, how that's been the reaction that I don't totally understand from people. Guy's 29 years old. He was 2 years ago. He was third in voting, averaged 28 a game, came off shoulder surgeries, had a down year. And also they traded their entire future for him. So you kind of had to pay him. And also basically every team in the NBA would pay him that money. So that's sort of what I got to say about that. Not going to get too much into it because we talked about it earlier. So Giannis, I think 6 is probably low for Giannis. But
I don't think the Bucks will do well this year in the playoffs for sure. That's what I'm.
Well, they didn't do well in the playoffs last year. So, but they're better. They're better this year.
Yeah,
they're better. I mean, they got Drew. They swapped. A play. Look. One of their biggest issues the past 2 years in the playoffs was Eric Bledsoe. He stunk in the playoffs, and they got Drew. And now Drew doesn't have a ton of playoff experience, but he's still much better than Eric Bledsoe. So immediately they're better, but they lost 4-1. Are they that much better? Maybe not. But I don't think they're getting smoked by teams the way they did last year. The Bogdanovich thing, not getting him, hurt them because that would have been a big scoring option for them to add.
That would have been huge. Yeah.
But even just having Drew, because end of game situations too, right? Like they were relying on Chris Middleton to be their end of game guy and get them either a shot or get them in because Giannis couldn't shoot.
Like, listen, like just that statement. Third best player in the league. Like
I know.
He can't shoot.
I know, dude. I know. All right. 1 and 2. Again, ESPN was probably listening to the podcast during the playoffs. And then.
Or is it your day job? Are you the writer of this story? Like you mentioned your day job off the top. Oh, okay. Sorry.
No, I'm not. And honestly, I don't even know if I'd want to. But Anthony Davis at 2, which again, during the finals, we were saying this, like maybe even before the finals, like, is this guy the second best player in the NBA right now? Because the things he does now.
Insane, yeah.
I don't think he has a true weakness in his game. Like, what's the weakness in Anthony Davis's game?
No, there is no weakness right now. I mean, he does everything you need well, Maybe he could be a better passer. Maybe. I don't know. Like, there's no weakness.
But you're also not like asking him to be a facilitator. You have the best facilitator in the history of basketball on your team. So, yeah, it's actually maybe not even particularly close at this point. Like for 1, 2, and then everybody else. Right.
I mean, that is, I guess, recency just with how the Clippers and Kawhi went out, like when the playoffs were starting, we would have said Kawhi. Like that's how good Kawhi was playing. So that's why I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's not close, but by the end of the season, maybe it becomes so clear that AD is just very much superior to Kawhi. I don't know if I'm there yet. But I do think he is number 2.
Like everyone on this list everyone that we've talked about on this list has some weakness. Yeah. What's Kawhi's weakness? Kawhi maybe doesn't have weakness other than no emotion.
Yeah. No, Kawhi does not have a weakness on the floor.
Right. He doesn't have at least a major weakness. I mean, I guess if you were going to give him a weakness, it'd be the same thing you said about AD, like not a great passer, but I don't think that matters a ton with those type of guys. So yeah, Kawhi probably. Luka doesn't really have an offensive weakness either. To be honest, defense remains to be seen, but offensively, he doesn't really have a weakness. It's very fascinating to me about Giannis because he has if you look at the top 10, he has the most glaring weakness of any player in the top 10, Giannis.
Yep.
Is that he is an awful shooter and just seems to have not gotten any better at it, which is crazy.
On top of that, it's starting to appear completely unfixable. Like it'd be pretty shocking if he fixed that this late in his career. Now, I know he's still young, but I'm just saying he's been in the league long.
I agree.
Yeah, he is what he is as a shooter, it appears.
That's not good for them.
And it's not impossible that he takes a big step. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Shooting the ball. So, okay. Well, I guess this is a different conversation. Also, LeBron's won. No surprise. But talking about Giannis, then how does he get better?
That's what it's.
I know.
No, I'm saying I think he's peaked, and it's like he's a back-to-back MVP, so his peak is absurdly high.
Right.
But I don't think he's a championship player without another guy who's a top 5 player in the league. You know? Well, no, no. If you paired him with like Harden or something like that. So let's say I think
I see what you're saying.
I think Giannis needs another like top 15 player in the league to get a ring, which to me that doesn't earn you the number 3 spot on a list like this.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying like if his shot, what?
I don't think he can get much better than this.
Got
what
it.
I'm saying.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm asking. It's just like if his shot can't get better. I mean, of course it can, but if it doesn't look like it particularly will get better at this point in his career, like what can he improve on? Because he's a dominant defender.
Already the depoy, right?
He's already what?
The depoy.
Oh, the depoy. Yeah, he's the depoy. He's back-to-back MVPs, the depoy, and he can't shoot. Look at your dog back there. Your dog back there just showing off for everybody.
Awesome. She really is, yeah. But I think she just agrees with us that Giannis, he's peaked.
Oh, man. Like, you've said a few the show today that, like, if they were on an ESPN headline, would go viral.
Some people off. That's, I don't want to, that's not me, but it's just how I feel today,
I'm not saying you're wrong.
I know.
I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong. You know how I feel about Giannis. I agree. I don't think he'll ever be able to shoot, and I do think that that's always going to hamper his upside. And that's why I never thought he was the best player in the NBA, even when people were like, "Oh, he's coming off an MVP season. He's the next." No, I never thought he was going to be that guy. I know he's great, obviously, at what he does. But yeah, it's going to be really hard for him to be the guy who leads you to a championship at this current stage without, like you said, a top 10 or 15 player next to him, because he's so limited offensively, or at least scoring the ball at end of games.
Right. Sorry, go ahead.
No, the guy who wins you games in the playoffs has to be able to score from anywhere on the floor because defense is so good at end of games. It's just what it is. And he got exposed. He's been exposed 2 years in a row now, but way more against Miami.
Where was, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, where was Middleton on this list? Like, because that's the second best player, like.
I mean, I can find it. He was definitely in the 11 to 50 range.
Yeah.
I think it was in like the third. I want to say it was in the 30s.
It was the 20s. I don't know. But that's just kind of what I'm saying. Like, he already has another very good player, and he's not sniffing a title right now. So what does he need? Like, how much better of a number 2 does he need? It looks like he needs an elite, a super elite number 2 to get over the hump.
Well, I don't know, man. It's interesting because I think they really fucked up letting Malcolm Brogdon go.
Yeah.
The guy is, when he's healthy, an elite defender and was a 50-40-90 guy for them. And they lost Mirotic, who was a big loss for them because he was very good. They didn't go to the finals with that team, but I think keeping Bledsoe as opposed to Brogdon, like if you kept Brogdon and Middleton and you went and just traded for Drew, and now your team was Drew, Brogdon, Middleton, and Giannis, that team might be good enough. That's a pretty damn good team, and that is without another top 15 player, because Brogdon's never going to be that, but Brogdon's pretty fucking good.
Yeah. No, yeah, I see what you're saying. It isn't all about the number 2. If you surrounded him with 4 guys that are like, yeah, in the top 50 or something, or in the top 100.
And they were on their way to doing it. Like Brogdon's 39th on ESPN's list. Mm-hmm. Middleton's 35.
Okay.
So, I think their roster is built around him the way you would need to build a roster around him. It's just all shooters. Bledsoe wasn't a great shooter. Drew's maybe a little bit better shooter. He's decent. But you have a guy who can't shoot, and you let a 50, 40, 90 guy walk. Basically, that's a huge fuck up. It's a huge fuck up.
It's pretty bad
on that part. Because I think about the East right now, and I'm just like, yeah, there are a few really good teams, but if I'm looking at the Bucks and I got Drew Holiday, Malcolm Brogdon, Chris Middleton, and Giannis with, I guess, Brook Lopez at the 5, that's tough.
Deadly. They're definitely not getting steamrolled by the Heat for sure. Might even win. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, it's doable, but it's going to be tough when you make decisions like that. And then when you try to make a trade with the Kings and you break all the rules and you get caught, and then the guy doesn't even want to come to, like, I mean, that's not helping your case either.
No.
I guess
they're going
to so. What?
If Kawhi or if Giannis walks, they're just going to get dogged so hard for the little couple of things that have derailed.
But I feel like no one talks about the Brogdon thing.
Yeah, you're right. You bring it up, and I'm completely with you. I just feel like he's not as high profile enough of a player for people to be like, remember that,
They traded him. I keep saying they traded him. It's because they let him walk. If they kept him for another year, first of all, the guy was rookie of the year. I understand, debatable, whatever, that year, that was a bad draft class, whatever it was. But then, they let him walk. I think, what is it, like 12 players maybe ever in the history of the league, 13 players ever have been 50, 40, 90 for an entire year. Who knows? And then it's just like any player, like if Chris Middleton went to the Pacers, you'd be like, okay, Chris Middleton's not as good as we thought he was. Chris is great. A guy like Chris, he's really good. But playing next to Giannis makes you much better. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Brogdon's not a household name, but who knows what he would have become playing next to a guy like Giannis.
Yeah.
Like maybe he would have been back-to-back 50, 40, 90. And then you're like, holy shit, this guy's one of the best shooters in NBA history. It would have changed. I don't know. I think it was such a huge deal when they let him walk. I had a feeling they were fucked when they let him walk. And it's weird because, again, he's not a star, but he seemed like he could have been such a core piece for them.
Mm-hmm. And that's
obviously he was.
Was just a poor shooter.
Who?
I'm saying that's exactly what they were missing as they were getting butt smoked by the Heat. Malcolm Brogdon looked really nice on the floor.
Well, he's like the prototypical NBA point guard right now.
Yeah,
he's like 6'5". He really defends and he can really shoot. Mm-hmm. He's like the opposite of Eric Bledsoe, who is really small and really fast, but can't shoot. Brogdon, not super athletic, but very big and a great defender and can shoot. Like they made the wrong choice there. Little tiny point guards, not the way to go.
No, not in 2020.
Nope. Do you have trivia for today?
Yeah.
To wrap up the show?
Yep. You want me to go first?
And everybody who's watching, we're going to actually, starting Sunday night, right? Starting Sunday night, we're doing this live every day.
Yes, sir.
To react to games every night. So if you're watching us on YouTube or Twitch, it's going to be an every night thing. So join us. We'll try to set a consistent time, I think. But it's going to be tough because we're trying to react to games and we're on the East Coast. So we'll see. Some days might be later than others, but we'll try to keep a relatively consistent time and we'll keep everyone posted. But appreciate everyone who's been watching. And we usually wrap up our final. This is our last show of the week. So we usually wrap up our last show of the week with some NBA. Do you want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Mine's straightforward, pretty simple, simply stated. Can you name the top 3 active 3-point shooters in terms of percentage in the NBA?
Steph.
He's well. What order are you going?
Oh, do I need to do it in order?
Yeah.
Well, you just said, can you name the top 3? You didn't say in order.
It was assumed. It could. But you could still be right depending on which direction you're going. Are you going 3-2-1 or 1-2-3?
Well, I guess now I got to go 3-2-1.
Yeah.
Steph 3.
Steph is 3.
Well, I mean, you sort of teed that up for me. Active 3-point shooting percentage.
Yes.
Clay.
No, I think he's 6.
Malcolm Brogdon.
No.
Is Paul George one of them?
No, not in the top 3.
This is career 3-point percentage.
Yes, active.
This is tough. This is a tough one. This is really tough. JJ?
No, he's in the top 10. Do you want some hints?
Kyle Korver?
No, I think he was 5.
Ray Allen?
Not active.
Oh, okay. Yeah, give me a hint.
This is your boy.
Tyler Herro?
No, same team.
Duncan Robinson?
Robinson.
Oh, I mean, it's tough. He's only been in the year. I mean, he's really only played, but I get it. But he's really only played like meaningful minutes for an NBA team for one season.
Yeah. So number 1 has a sample size, and it's pretty shocking that he's not.
Are you gonna give me? Was that the hint?
That's a small hint. It's probably not very helpful.
This guy's been playing forever, and he's got like. Has he been playing for over 10 years?
I think he's right there. Maybe a little bit less. He changed teams this offseason.
Chris Paul.
No.
Is that even a good guess? I don't think so.
All right, do you want a big hint?
No. Well, it changed teams this offseason. There's a lot of guys. Did a lot of guys change teams? Everything's such a blur. Yeah, give me a hint.
He was on the best offense in league history last year.
Oh, Seth
Curry is number 1 active 3-point shooter.
That's not close to 10 years, is he?
I think he is. Hold on.
No. I bet he's around 5 or 6, which I guess is on the closer side to 10 than.
Oh, I'm looking at. You know how like if you change teams, you're like year. There's like multiple
total on Basketball Reference.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 years. Okay. But he changed teams a couple times in 2014, so it looked like it was more.
Right. What? Oh, yeah.
I just seen that he's number 1 on the.
Well, I had Seth Curry last year, or it was not last year, but the year before, because last year was COVID year and all that stuff. The year before at All-Star, Seth Curry was there for, I think, the 3-point contest. And the first question I asked him was, how does it feel to be the best shooting Curry on the planet? Because at the time, his career 3-point percentage was higher than with Steph.
And still is.
And I expected him to like talk a bunch of shit because I was like, oh, it's his brother. He didn't.
Right.
It wasn't a great answer. I didn't love it.
It's the younger brother. You can't really talk shit on your older brother who's like
your brother's the first unanimous MVP, back-to-back MVP, 3-time NBA champion, considered the best shooter in NBA history. Yeah, it's hard. All right, you want mine before we end this thing?
Yep.
2 players in NBA history have averaged, this is for their career, 20 points per game, a steal and a half per game, and 38% from 3.
First guy that comes to mind is Iverson, but I don't think he wasn't anywhere close on 3-pointers.
No, I mean, you got to assume it's more recent guys because threes weren't as prevalent. Right.
I'm assuming Michael Jordan did not hit 38%
for a career.
It can be active, right?
They are both active.
Kawhi?
No.
Ooh, really? He must just be a tick below there.
I'll give you one. I'll give you a hint. One of them is one of the best defenders in the NBA because the steals thing is obviously is where your head's at.
Yeah. Paul George?
Yeah. Okay. Paul George won. One of them, you would never even think of him as a defender, but I always have said, I think I've even said on here, he's a very underrated defender. Not that steals is really an indication of individual defense, but.
Right. It means you're active.
Right.
Oh, man.
How many guys really for their career or over 38%. That's a lot.
All right, now a bunch of guys I'm thinking of don't seem like 20-point per game scorers.
I mean, that's a lot. It's a lot of points for your career.
KD, Kevin Durant.
No, shit. Didn't have the steals, I guess, because he definitely averaged 20. He may not. He may not be at 38 from three.
I'm gonna need some hints.
What conference?
Yeah,
West.
Anthony Davis. He's not at 38%, right?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I think any hint I gave you at this point would give it away. I don't know how to give you a hint that wouldn't get. Well, he's a point guard.
Okay, he's a point guard.
Yeah, which I guess narrows it down a lot.
Chris Paul.
No.
Huh. I should be getting this, I'm assuming.
I mean, how many point guards are point a game guys for their career and shoot over 38% from three?
Steph Curry?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, the steals thing. I just never. I mean, I know he's fine defensively. Just 1.5 steals surprised me. Nice.
I just thought that was an interesting stat for all the people who are like, Paul George doesn't deserve $45 million a year.
Right. No, that's ludicrous. He's a max player. God, it's pissing me off.
Yeah. He's like on basketball reference right now, he's 65% on their Hall of Fame thing.
Yeah.
And he's only 29 years old. So we're talking about a guy who probably will end up in the Hall of Fame.
Unless he gets going to the Hall of Fame.
And also, let's everyone not forget, okay? This guy injured himself serving his country. Okay?
So he deserves a Medal of Honor, technically, right?
This guy was not playing for an NBA team. This was not a time where he was making millions of dollars. Paul George was playing for the US of A, serving his country, and snapped his leg in half. Thank you for your service, Paul George. You deserve this $45 million a year.
He's joking, everybody, who maybe somebody's finding that insensitive or something.
I mean, I'm only slightly joking. He was playing for Team USA when he snapped his leg in half and came back from one of the worst injuries we've ever seen, and then went on to be third in MVP voting. So Paul George, you know what I'm not joking about? Paul George service. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Representing our country. In
the Call of Duty, the line of duty, he was
on the battlefield.
On the battlefield.
It
was scrimmage, so he was playing.
That's true.
He was playing other U.S. soldiers.
The point is, he wasn't getting paid, or I'm sure he gets. I don't know what Olympic guys get paid. It's probably not much.
A stipend, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but it wasn't like he didn't have to do it. Okay. In fact, a lot of guys say no when you ask them to represent the red, white, and blue. There's a lot of guys who are like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm not representing America. I am not representing America this summer. I am tired from the NBA. Paul George said, not only am I going to represent America, I will break my bones in half to do it. And then he came back and he has a 65% chance to be a Hall of Famer, according to Basketball Reference. So get off his back, people. Yeah, I'm back on Paul. I'm a Paul George fan again.
Love it.
Get out of here. Everyone who hates Paul George, I love him. Represents America, breaks his leg in half.
This is a quick 180.
Becomes an MVP candidate, gets $180 million, $90 million. Good for him. One of two players in NBA history to average 20 points a game, a steal and a half, and 38% from three for his career. The only other one, arguably the best point guard to ever play the game, Steph Curry. Definitely the best shooter to ever play basketball, Steph Curry. If you're one of two with one of the best players to ever play basketball, you don't deserve $190 million? Not true.
This is a hell of a rant that I was not anticipating at the end of the show.
I'm fired up. I'm like suddenly fired up about this Paul George thing again.
Part of me thinks you're just trying to get to the hour and a half mark. We're about 30 seconds away.
No, we have no time to hit. In fact, we are going a lot longer than usual. But I think Sean York Sean York, who may not even be watching anymore, got me fired back up saying Paul George is a waste of money.
Oh, I guess the troops are a waste of money too then, huh? Well, maybe we should lower our military budget slightly, but that's a whole other discussion.
That's a whole other thing. Sean York doesn't love Team USA, which might mean that Sean York doesn't love America. But I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. I don't know Sean York. I'm just saying Sean York, Paul George broke his leg for America in half for America.
On live TV.
I remember where I was at. I remember I was in Charlotte, North Carolina. I was sitting at a bar. I was drinking a beer and I was watching Team USA. And I was rooting for them boys. I was rooting for them boys good. And then I saw it.
Which you were rooting for? Which team were you rooting for? They were both okay.
Oh, was it a blue and white? That's right.
Yeah, everyone on the court was American.
I was rooting for everybody. I was rooting for them all.
You're rooting for America.
And then I saw it. I said, Paul George, thank you for sacrificing a leg for America. You deserve $190 million.
I'm trying to work in some sort of joke where the stanchion was made in Russia or something. I just haven't been able to do it. But that stanchion was too damn close.
No, you know who was Russian? The ball boy who didn't wipe the goddamn floor.
That's a little harsh. Although he literally may have been Russian. We don't know.
Yeah, who knows? All right. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, solid. We've probably done better. I don't know. I think it's pretty good.
Hoping Sean York would say something back, but he's probably...
Sean York's gone. Sean York, thank you for your service. Everybody who watched, thank you guys for watching. Leave comments once this is up. Hit that like button. Like it. Everybody who's listening, I mean, at least you got to hear that rant, because if you saw the facial expressions, it takes it to a whole other level. So check it out once it's back up on YouTube. And next week, let's say, all right, Sunday night, midnight.
Sunday night, midnight. Got it.
Is that the plan? I mean, for our first preseason game live stream. All right, before we wrap, let's check the schedule, because usually Sunday NBA games are earlier. So we may not have to go that late.
Okay.
But
the Eagles do play at 4:25 that day, so we might have
so you have to go late either way. Gotcha. The last game is Kings Blazers at 9:00 Sunday night. So yeah, midnight. Check us out. Underdogs, YouTube, Twitch. We will be live reacting to the third night of preseason. We'll give you a weekend recap of how NBA preseason in the COVID era is going. Appreciate you guys. We will see you Sunday night. Later.